world can feel heavy sometimes, like you're carrying a weight you weren't meant to bear. For many in the LGBTQ plus community, that weight is made heavier by stigma, by discrimination, by the struggle to find acceptance and love in a world that doesn't always understand. Welcome back to Elder Roost, everyone. I'm Kevin Rivera. Today, we're tackling some tough but incredibly important topics: mental health, STDs, and the power of advocacy within the LGBTQ plus community. We've talked a lot on this show about finding love, about building connections, but sometimes the journey to these things isn't easy. It can be filled with obstacles that affect our mental well-being and make us question our self-worth. But here's the thing: you're not alone. And there are people fighting for you, working tirelessly to create a world where LGBTQ plus individuals can thrive, both mentally and physically. Today, we have an incredible guest joining us, RJ Aguirre. So, Jesse, before RJ joins us, I want to talk a little bit about why these topics are so critical for our community.
Honey, you're preaching to the choir. Mental health is something we all need to be talking about, but within the LGBTQ plus community, there are unique challenges that we can't ignore.
Absolutely. Like you said, Jesse, mental health is a universal concern. But when you add layers of discrimination, stigma, and even internalized homophobia that many LGBTQ plus people face, it can create a perfect storm.
It's like trying to build a house on shaky ground. You need a strong foundation of self-acceptance and support to truly thrive. And that's where advocacy comes in, right?
100%. People like RJ are out there building those foundations, brick by brick. They're fighting for access to mental health care, for education about STDs, and for a world where LGBTQ plus individuals can live authentically, without fear.
And let's be real, Kevin. Talking about STDs can be uncomfortable, but it's so important. We need to break down the stigma and create an environment where people can get tested, get treatment, and protect themselves and their partners.
Welcome, RJ. How are you this evening?
I'm good.
Thank you for joining us. You've dedicated your life to helping others. You've worked with Ryan White. You've provided support to people living with HIV. And as a peer specialist for Miami-Dade County, you've been advocating for mental health and substance use awareness.
Yeah.
So we're very happy to have you. You're a treasure of Miami. My first question for you is, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you to become such a passionate devotee to the fight?
Okay, my journey started maybe 25 years ago, where I was introduced to the gay community in Miami. Although I was born and raised here, I was not only introduced to the fun part of it, but also the sad part of it. That being a lot of friends that I made along the way. We lost to AIDS and some to substance use. Throughout my life, I worked in business administration, but something was missing. Then my divorce in 2016 and a couple of trials and tribulations after that, I found that I did have a strong voice, but it was just voiced in the wrong place. And that's where I started my journey. I started with a friend of mine that talked to me about becoming a peer, which I don't know what that was. When I went to the first training, I understood that a peer was somebody with mental health, substance use, or HIV, so on and so forth. Because it could go in many realms. Or somebody who has lived experiences. So whether you've had family, friends, colleagues that have suffered from any of those things, you could use that to become a peer and help others. That led me to leave the private sector in business administration and go into the public sector with Ryan White. When I went into Ryan White, I went a peer educator for newly diagnosed and especially minorities living with HIV and also living with substance use and mental health disorder. I did that for a while, and then I transitioned into Miami-Dade County to a grant that served the minority community living with substance use, mental health, and HIV, or at risk of HIV. Along the way, I met a lot of wonderful organizations that are out there to give their services and help. The majority of them are free for those who are not able to pay or don't have the income or insurance.
These are funded through the county, the state, or through the federal government?
These are funded through SAMHSA.
SAMHSA.
Yes, these are funded through SAMHSA, but also there is other funding. There's some state funding, there's some local funding. You will have an organization that has different funding. It doesn't mean that just because RJ organization, I'm only funded by SAMHSA. It could be
Right.
the state opioid response. It could be different funding.
There's a lot of funding sources.
Yeah, these entities sign contracts and bid on grants to serve the community.
Being a peer support to doing all sorts of work with these organizations that are funding.
Any job is stressful, but I think that of the outcome of the work, although there is stressors to any job, you do have that outcome where you are able to see that individual that came in with concerns and problems and be able to get a foundation to build on and go back into the community and be able to work and get their life back on the road. It's a very rewarding job.
You've worked with the Ryan White Foundation. Tell me about some of the challenges you experienced seeing people who are living with HIV and what they face, particularly when it comes to mental health.
Anybody living with HIV, the first thing that you face is stigma, whether it's in the minority community, but whether it's a cultural stigma, whether it's the financial stigma, and then of course, with stigma comes many other mental health development. So there's depression, there's anxiety, there's all of these things, and not knowing to cope with them, it could become a long-term effect on the individual's life.
Right.
One of the things I did notice was the stigma. Another thing was access to care. It's very hard to get around without a car, and a lot of these locations, we have come a long way from that, but we still need to continue to push and get that accessibility to the individuals in need.
Okay. Thank you. My next question actually goes back to Miami. We've got a vibrant LGBTQ plus community, but there's also specific issues that affect us here. What would you say are some of the biggest mental health concerns that you're seeing right now in Miami-Dade County?
Okay, so social connectedness, I think that we've lost that connecting to one another. Right now it's social app based, which limits the one-on-one communication with someone with the day-to-day work stressors. I got to pay mortgage. I got to pay my car. I have to get a second
Yeah.
job, whatever it is. We have relied on social apps to connect with others. Unfortunately, social apps could work in one way, and then in another way could work negatively. Because you go into a social app, you start swiping left, swiping right, then you start questioning yourself, okay, do I fit the criteria to be on here? Because I'm looking at this person and they're in front of me
Exactly.
gently. First, you have to be content with yourself. Let's
Yes.
be real. We are in Miami, and it's glitz and glamour, and it's
Right.
who you know and what you know and where you go. These apps paint a picture of a person that could probably be fictional.
It doesn't exist. Yeah.
Yes, and if I was to group them in the right lighting and together, it would put this perspective of me as this Miami rich kid, which I'm not. And if I put that in a social app, then somebody on the other end might be looking at it and saying, well, this is where I have to be, or this is what I have to look like, or this is how I need to act to be accepted. That starts doubting the person's self. The person suffers from any type of depression or anxiety or any mental health.
Right.
It will make it that much worse. So that's one of the things, social connectiveness. And then another thing is being transparent. I think that we right now are in unfortunate society where a transparency sometimes is not received as what it is, which
Okay.
is being transparent. Is seen as, oh, you're hurting my feelings, or you're putting me down, and so on and so forth. And granted, there is ways of saying things, but there's also ways of receiving those things. And we have being afraid of maybe saying something that might hurt someone's feelings because we
Okay.
think we retract and don't say it, and we stop communicating and saying what we want or what our needs are. Although we are a big community, we're not as close as we seem.
Absolutely. I've seen a big fragmentation in the gay community here in Miami, especially when it comes to transsexuals and gay men, as well as with lesbians and gay men. There's a clear divisions in the city. I see, at least. What have you seen?
Because let's look at historical facts, and let's look at when you hear about Stonewall, who threw the first brick?
That's right.
There wasn't a gay man. And then in Miami, a lot of the loudest voices down here have been those of transgender women and transgender men,
Yes.
even drag queens. And we tend to say, yay, we accept it from afar, but this is not my circle. And I don't find that to be something that I would say it's not nice. Because strength is in
Strength is in unity.
unity, and being united, we're that much more stronger. And just because maybe in a sexual aspect, you might not be attracted to part
I
of
agree
your
with you.
so, so
And if we take it a step further, just because someone is living a lifestyle that you don't understand doesn't mean that you should ostracize them either. Like the reverse bigotry from the gay population with the
yes,
transgender, because it's like we experienced that exact same thing, and now we've come into the sort of normal and where we should be ushering in the transgender community, not hitting the beehive.
Yeah, I agree. And it's crazy because LGBTQ plus Sunday brunches are hosted by drag queens or transgender women. And it's always, for the most part, full of gay men and women. So you go have fun, but you can't take it from there. You can't, I could go see you perform, but we can't hang out. It doesn't make sense to me.
What I have found is that what we're trying to do at Elder Roost is to unify our community. That's the reason that we're doing what we do. With that said, what role allies can play in supporting the LGBTQ plus community's fight for mental health awareness and access to healthcare?
I think the first thing, understanding mental health, understanding substance use.
So
That's number
educating
one.
yourself.
Education is key, and it's always been key.
Okay.
And understanding and being empathetic to whatever the situation is. Also, understanding what resources you have around you to be able to guide that friend or that partner or that family member to get the help they need. I think it's education. Education is always going to be top. And then also being versed in what we have in the community that potentially could help.
So understanding mental health, understanding the resources that are available in order to help those people.
Yeah.
So as we've talked a lot on Elder Roost about the impact of hookup apps in our community, from your experience, how have these apps influenced mental health and the spread of STDs?
I think we have become a little bit more savvy versus going out and actually meeting people. I think that what we're expecting from that social app might not be what the social app intended to do. So now you're on a social app and you meet John Doe, and you are like, oh my God, this is the man I've been dreaming of. I could see myself building a home for him.
Right, you call the U-Haul and make sure it's in front of the house when you head out to your date.
And John Doe is looking for what that social app was built to do, which is probably just to hook up. So it goes both ways. That in itself is a letdown. Then also, you go into a social app, and of course, everybody's going to post their best picture.
Aren't even them.
So now you are finding yourself in an app where you might not fit a lot of the profiles that you're seeing there physically, or so then throws you back to that: do I fit in? Am I going to be wanted? And am I going to be seen? So that starts working in the back of your mind. And then, because it is an app built for a particular purpose, doesn't mean it's the same all the time, but for a particular purpose, now you're going through all these issues where you went on there to meet the love of your life. That didn't work. And now you don't fit, or you think you don't fit the criteria to be on there. But now you have somebody who just wants to have sex and tells you, hey, let's do this. You're wrapped in all that you're like, okay, why not? This is validation.
Right. It's validation.
Okay.
It's a quick
fix. There's nothing wrong with sex, and there's nothing wrong with being validated through sex. What I'm saying is that could lead to unprotected sex if you're not taking care of yourself, whether it's on prep or whatever the case may be, and the other person's not, and you sleep with this one and that one, so on and so forth. There is that possibility of the STD spreading. It goes hand in hand, and this could happen anywhere. It's not only in a social app, it could happen in a social setting, but it's easier through a social app to be able to swipe right or click yes or meet me at 8.
App that's specifically designed for hooking up. and
Yes,
their
of
creators
course.
certainly don't benefit by two people connecting. They would benefit more by a lot of single gay men.
Of course, that's how the app continues to go. And when you go on these apps, again, I've seen the evolution
Yes.
of them. Some of these apps now do have access to treatment, access to care in their little propagandas that they put on there. But again, it is built for a
Right.
purpose. And I think that if you're caught up in the wrong idea, you might end up in a totally different situation that you would have thought you would have been in or ended up in.
Agreed. And not only that, there's these new phrases that are coming up, things like ageism, disposable culture. I've seen a lot of that go on within these apps that exist. It's painful to see because you and I, we didn't grow up in that environment.
I'll tell you something, and this is just me. I remember when I started getting the gray hair. I have a lot of friends that are around my age. Most a little older, they take care of themselves, they hit the gym, dye their hair, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to embrace it. If I'm considered too old, then so be it. If I'm considered too flamboyant, so be it. If I'm considered too short or too stocky, or whatever the case may be. Now, did it take me a while to get there? Yes, of course. Social apps at some point in time did make me shy away from going places or interacting with people. Yes, of course.
Right.
But
That's right.
this is a huge world. It's not for one
That's
or for
right.
the other. It's for everyone. So
We all
we
fit.
all fit. Mm-hmm.
Very well said. And that's a message that I'd like to send across to every person listening to this. We all fit. There's a place for all of us in this family, and no one should ever feel alone or discarded. What advice would you give to someone who is struggling with their mental health or worried about STDs but afraid to seek help?
Being afraid of now.
Right.
Because when you don't understand something, you might be afraid of doing it, embracing it, bringing it to your life, taking that leap of faith. Educate yourself. We have evolved from how it used to be to where it is now. There is a lot of help out there that is maintained. There is HIPAA, so that's number one. But there's a lot of places out there that you could go seek the help. Sometimes even it's just a phone call, and it could start there. You could seek the help without announcing it to the
Right.
world, therefore feeling safe, but getting the help. For those out there who are afraid and wanting to seek help, I would tell you first, educate
Right.
yourself.
Educate.
Whatever you're feeling, educate yourself. And then there is an organization called Thriving Minds.
Rising
Okay.
minds. Thriving.
THRIVINGMIND.org.
Thriving minds.
Yeah. So on thrivingminds.org, you're going to see on there, they provide a lot of services for substance use and mental health.
Okay.
Not only do they provide services at residential facilities, but they also have outpatient, they have peer services, and they're going to guide you through it. When you reach out to them and you join one of their numerous partners,
Okay.
this is like a family. They will help you, committees and boards and so on and so forth, to help others going through the same issue that you at some point were going through, or that maybe you're still going through, but you are able to
Gotcha.
control.
Okay.
Okay? So that's one. Now, of course, if you are at your wit's end and you don't know what to do and you're going into a crisis mode, on your phone, there is a crisis line is 988. There is a caller who is trained for trauma informed care to help you. They will also link you, okay, to providers and services. Those two are for the substance use and mental health
Gotcha.
part. Now, for those who are at risk, if you're joining risky
Right.
behaviors, or you have been diagnosed with HIV, or you feel like you need to get tested, the Department of Health is one of those that you could just walk into and get
Okay.
tested. You could put on your Google browser Ryan White, Miami. I believe the first link that comes out is Miami. If you click on there, it's going to provide you all the services. And you could click on whichever one you're looking for, your nearest testing site.
Can you give a quick summary of Ryan White, who that individual was, and what is the mission behind the foundation?
The mission behind the foundation, this started Ryan White transfusion contracted
Okay.
HIV. And of course, this is in a time where having HIV or AIDS was something that everybody thought just by being next to somebody, you would get it. He was having issues with school, his parents. He fought together with his parents. He fought the system to start this foundation to spread awareness and help others suffering from HIV and AIDS. Fast forward, Ryan White, for clients with, they provide, if you don't have insurance and you're under the poverty line, your healthcare medication, mental health, dental, substance use, and other health providers that you might need due to your condition.
Okay.
There is huge funding. Jackson Health has one.
Okay.
Then you have other smaller locations, I would say, that provide the same services. You will have a case manager, you will have access to care, and they help with everything.
And that actually answers my next question. What are some of the resources available in Miami-Dade County for people who need support, whether it's for mental health, STD testing, or just general LGBTQ plus advocacy? We didn't touch on that. Can you provide us perhaps with a resource for general LGBTQ plus advocacy?
I would say with Miami-Dade County, if you go, I'm a Google search person. That's me. And the reason why is that because I stay in an area that is not close to areas that are known to have higher LGBT organization population. So access to certain things might seem like they're not
Right.
around.
It in a magazine in your community, you think that doesn't
Exactly.
exist. Understand?
But you do have Latino Salute, which they have a lot of meetings and talks for the LGBTQ plus community. And then I would suggest that going on miamidade.gov, okay, and entering in CQ plus and whatever it is that you're looking for, whether it's group, whether it's event. They do have a lot on there because the mayor Loving Kava is somebody who is, her deep roots is in social
Okay.
services. She has pushed for a lot of events of that nature to be in the Miami-Dade.gov portal. I would say go on there. If it's not something that calls your attention or something that's too far for you, I would say, again, Google is your best
Right.
friend. I would put gay lesbian events around me, and then usually it gives you what's coming up, what's going on.
Okay.
Wynwood has a lot. And then, of course, Miami Beach. And if you go up north, you have Wilton Manors, and then so
Yeah.
on and so forth.
Excellent.
There are meetings in other locations. A Chamber of Commerce, LGBTQ plus Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce. Does
Information.
GLAAD play a part here in Miami?
I believe so.
Okay.
But it would be something that we would have to look
Okay.
at.
My last question is this. What message of hope would you give someone who feels alone in their struggle?
You're not alone. You are not alone. At some point in time, we're all struggling with something. It might not be at the same magnitude as the other person, but we're all struggling with something. What I would tell that person is don't give up, reach out. There is a lot of people out there who want to help, who are ready to help, and they are waiting for your phone call. So don't feel alone. You're not alone.
RJ, thank you so much for sharing your story and your incredible work with us today. You're truly making a difference in the lives of so many people.
I try every day. I try to be as accessible as possible. For those out there who are seeing this, if you see me around and you want to ask a question, feel free to come up to me. I'm always willing to talk. I'm always willing to give whatever information I do have. And if I don't have it, I will find you.
I can attest to that. You have been instrumental in helping me put together Elder Roost. I have just a million thanks for you.
No, my pleasure.
And to
my
all of our
pleasure.
viewers, remember you're not alone. There is help available.
RJ Honey, you are a beacon of hope. Our community needs more people like you who are willing to fight for our mental and physical well-being. We need to look out for each other, lift each other up, and spread the word that it's okay to ask for help. And remember, loves, you are strong, you are beautiful, and you are worthy of love and happiness.